Hi, and welcome to Art with Mrs. Torres. Today we are meeting outside of my art studio because I'm going to have you go on a scavenger hunt. You're going to be looking for 3 different types of leaves that have fallen from the trees in your neighborhood. So you can look in your yard or you can take a little walk down the street with your family and see if you can gather 3 different kinds of leaves. Now, in a minute, I'm going to go on a scavenger hunt in my yard looking for 3 different leaves. And then we're going to gather up those leaves when we're done, and we're going to draw these leaves into a beautiful art project. All right, so let's get ready. I'm going to go on my walk now. Okay, so I am going to leave my art studio, and I'm going to start looking on the ground for leaves. I already spot an oak leaf. These are so sharp, and they come down from our giant oak tree. But I need 2 other leaves. So let's go down to the bottom of my yard and we're going to check out if I have any other leaves that have fallen on the ground or fallen from a tree. So this is a beautiful sycamore tree from my neighbor's yard, and I can already spot a beautiful sycamore leaf that got stuck right here in our bush. So that is a perfect leaf to draw. Matter of fact, here's another gigantic leaf. Look at how big that one is compared to our oak leaves. I'm going to take that one too. But that's still one type of tree. So I've got an oak leaf, I've got a sycamore leaf. Now I'm going to look over here underneath my art studio deck and see, because we have a lot of trees from our neighbor's yard. Oh my goodness, look at this leaf, you guys. That is so pretty. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, I got my 3 leaves now. I've got my oak leaf, and I have my sycamore leaf, and I have my other leaf. I don't know what kind of leaf that is. Maybe a maple tree leaf. So now I want you to go gather up your leaves from your yard and then meet me back. And we're going to get ready to draw our project. All right, go on out and find your leaves, and then we're going to get ready to draw.
So let's begin our project. Today we are going to be making a beautiful leaf watercolor painting. And so let's see what we're going to need to gather today. We're going to need a piece of watercolor paper. You're going to need a napkin. You're going to need a pencil for doing your drawing, eraser. You're going to need a Sharpie marker and a crayon. You're also going to need some watercolors. Now, the crayon I'm using, by the way, is a white crayon, but you could really use any color. Now, for your watercolor set, you're also going to need a paintbrush. You can use a large brush like this or the brush that comes with your paint set. I'm going to be using this pointed brush, but for doing the background, if you have a wider brush, that will make it a little faster. So if you have one of these, great, but if you don't necessarily need it. And the last thing that you're going to need is some water for rinsing out your brush. Now, I use just a bowl of water like this. So pause your video, go ahead and gather up those items, and then meet me back here, and we'll begin our project. Well, welcome back. You've gathered up your watercolor paper, your pencil, your eraser, your marker, which I'm using a Sharpie, a crayon, and of course your paint set and water. You also have your leaves that you collected on your walk. And we're going to be using those leaves just for some inspiration. And let's begin. I'm going to move my leaves off to the side. I'm going to be making my paper horizontal today. Which direction would you like to do your project? You could do it tall if you'd like to. That would be vertical. I'm going to be making mine horizontal. And the first thing we're going to do is look at one of our leaves. So go ahead and pull one of your leaves and set it in front of you. So I'm going to teach you a little bit of information about the leaf. So the first thing we're going to see is that there is a stem right here. And this stem looks like it continues all the way down the leaf into the inside. Well, this part right here is called the midrib of the leaf. So the stem continues right here, and then there's that part right there that's called the midrib. And in every leaf, they have the same thing, a stem, and then that center line that runs down the middle is called the midrib. Now, these little skinny lines that run off of the midrib are called the veins of the leaf. the edge of the leaf, and these two leaves are very different, as you can tell. The edge of the leaf is called the margin. So the side right here is the margin, and the side of this leaf is also the margin. The last thing I want to show you on the leaf is the very tip of the leaf right here. So you can call it the tip or you can call it the apex. So now that we've learned about leaves, let's get ready to draw one. I'm going to zoom out again. I'm going to set a leaf in front of me and we're going to draw our first leaf. So you decide where you want that leaf to be on the paper. I'm going to be drawing this leaf up here. So I'm going to start by drawing a curved line, and this is going to be the stem. As you can see, the stem's got a little bit of a curve in it. I'm going to start up here toward the corner. I'm going to draw a nice long line like this. Now this is going to be part stem and part of the midrib. Now I'm going to make a little notch up here at the top for the end of that stem, and then I'm going to continue this line down. And as I get to the point, I'm going to start to bring my line closer in. It's going to get skinnier and skinnier and skinnier until it gets all the way to the tip. Now, once I have that done, my stem and my midrib, I'm going to start to draw the rest of the leaf. So I'm going to come over here about part way down and make a little mark where I want my leaf to begin. And I'm going to do just a really simple shape first. So for our first leaf, I'm going to start at this side and I'm just going to make a curved line that goes around and comes back to a point. I'm going to match it on this side, making sure that it comes to a nice point at the end. So if yours is not coming to a point and it's coming more rounded, you can just extend the midrib down like this and then kind of guide your line till it makes a point. All right, now I'm going to go in here and start to add the veins of the leaf. So when you're looking at the veins of your leaf, you'll notice the veins, which are those little lines that come off of the midrib. You'll see that the veins kind of make an arrow. These kind of look like they're making a little arrow shape, like an upside down V, and they are all pointed toward the stem. So when we're getting ready to draw our veins on our leaf, we want to make sure that it's an arrow pointing to the stem. So I'm going to go right here and I'm going to draw two lines that form an arrow pointing up. I'm going to draw two lines like an arrow pointing up. Now, you want to make sure that you're making an arrow and not a straight line out like this. You can see that doesn't look like a natural vein in the leaf. You want to make sure as you're drawing those, think of an arrow pointing up to the stem. So an arrow pointing up to the stem, or kind of like an upside down V. All right, that's our first leaf. It's already done. Now choose another space to draw leaf number 2. So for leaf number 2, you're going to find another area on your picture and you're going to draw another leaf. So maybe you want to put one down here. Maybe you want one going a different direction. You add your stem. So I did a curved line and then I'm going to bring it slowly in till it makes a skinny point. And for this leaf, I'm going to go a little bit in so I have some room for the stem. Make a little mark where I want to start this leaf. And for this leaf, I'm going to curve it around and bring it back. But I'm going to change the edge of the leaf on this one. So right now, it looks similar to this, but I'm going to change up the shape of the margin, the edge of the leaf. So for this one, I'm going to give it more of a wobbly line like this. Let me go in and erase my old line here. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to give it kind of a wobbly edge. And I'm going to erase my old line. Now I'm going to turn my paper to get ready to draw the veins, because remember, they need to be an arrow and it's pointing up to the stem. I'm going to start right here. Here's my arrow. Now in a minute, I'm going to draw 2 lines, and I want you to tell me what I did that wasn't quite right. What did I do wrong there? How are those lines supposed to be pointing? They're supposed to be like an arrow. So they shouldn't be going straight out. Actually, should be going pointed slightly on an angle. So these lines are going straight out. They don't seem to look natural like a leaf. I'm going to erase those and correct that. Bring them on an angle. That looks a little bit more natural, doesn't it? Right, so now I have that leaf done. Turn the paper back, and I'm going to make one more leaf somewhere else. So for this leaf, I'm going to do it a little bit different. I'm going to make it a little bit more interesting, and it's going to look more like this leaf. So it's got 1, 2, 3 big points. See that? So to draw that leaf, I'm going to start by making my stem. I'll make this one a little bit longer. And I'm going to draw the other side of my midrib. That's going to be that little section here. I'm going to go in a little bit to the end and make a mark where I want to start my leaf. And the first thing I'm going to do is make 2 more sections, one here and one here. So I'm going to go right over here where that line is, and I'm going to draw one line going out this way. I'm going to do one line coming out this way. So as you can see in my leaf here, I've got 1, 2, 3 lines coming out. Now I'm going to change the shape by making a little point on each one. So right here, I'm just going to take the end of this leaf and make a point by making the letter V. I'm going to do the same thing right here. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Now they look like 3 separate arrows, don't they? Now all I have to do is connect these 2 pieces together. So I'm going to bring this part way in. I'm going to connect this line here. And then I'm going to connect this line up to here. And these 2 places on the edge, that's called the margin. That's going to come all the way back to that little mark right here. So I'm just going to bring it back and bring it forward like that. Now for this leaf, I'm going to start making my veins here on this spot. I'm just going to go up higher until I get to the top. And then right about here, I'm going to take this little corner right here and I'm going to connect it. And this little corner here, and I'm going to connect it. And I have a little space here. And I'm going to turn on my paper and add my veins here. Remember, we're going to be making that arrow that points up to the stem. And I can do the same thing on this side. Now, if you need to pause the video at any time and finish your work, maybe you're drawing a little bit more careful than me, go ahead and pause the video and then just push play when you're ready to. Now I have a space over here. I was thinking it might be kind of fun to draw a part of a leaf, kind of right here in the bottom corner. So I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to draw a line that comes up from the corner. It's going to be the tip of the leaf. So the very end of the leaf right here is called the tip or the apex. And then from here, this is going to be really easy. I'm just going to bring it down on this side and down on this side. So this leaf is coming up from the bottom. So if it's the tip of the leaf, my veins are actually going to be going a different direction because the stem is down here. So this time we're going to be making our veins going the opposite direction. These arrows are going to be pointing down because the stem of our leaf would be down here off the edge of my paper. So this one's even easier because we're just making big letter V's. All right, my project is almost done. The only other thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to change the edge of my leaf when I use my marker. I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to wait and use my Sharpie marker for changing the edge of my leaf. So I'm going to get my Sharpie marker ready, and I'm going to ink first the vein and the midrib right here. I'm sorry, not the vein, the stem and the midrib of my leaf. So I'm just going to come up here. And I'm going to pull my marker toward me. Now I'm going to change the edge right here, the margin of my leaf, and I'm going to make it a little bit more wobbly. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Now I'm going to turn my paper like this, and I'm going to very lightly trace over the veins on my leaf. Now, when you're making your veins, they don't need to be perfectly straight, too. That's going to make it look even more natural. I'm going to go in and I'm going to trace over all the rest of my leaves. And once you get the hang of this, and you're looking at your leaves, and you're getting some ideas from the different leaves that you collected, you're going to have so much fun creating leaves. You'll be able to show everybody in your family how to make leaves. Remember, our veins are always pointing up toward the stem. This one's my simple one down here at the bottom. I'm going to kind of make the edge of my leaf a little wobbly. And my veins are pointing in a different direction on this one. For my final leaf up here, the one that's got the 3 points on it, I'm going to also change the edge of the leaf on this one as well. So I'm going to make this a little bit more interesting on the sides, because if you look at the edge of my leaf, it's not perfectly straight. So I'm going to change the shape of my leaf also. When I'm finished, I'm going to go in and draw the line right down the center of each of those sections that matches my midrib. Now my last part is to draw the veins. So I'm going to attach my 2 sections here, and I'm going to draw my veins. Now when you're all finished drawing your leaves, then I'd like you to go in and erase your pencil lines. So go ahead and finish working on your leaves. I'm going to finish working on mine, and then I want you to erase your pencil lines with your Magic Rub Eraser. All right, so go ahead and finish yours. I'm going to work on finishing mine, and I'll meet you back here in just a second. All right, I have finished drawing all of my leaves. I've erased all my pencil lines, and now I'm going to get ready to take a crayon, and I'm going to be drawing some patterns in the background. So you could make swirls, or you could make stripes, or you could trace the pattern around the edge of the leaf. So for instance, I'm just going to push hard with my crayon and I'm going to copy what I'm seeing when I look at the side of my leaf. Now I'm tracing a little bit away from my leaf. I know you can't see what I traced, but if I turn my paper just right, I think you could see it in the light. Can you kind of see that crayon mark? My white crayon? So I'm going to trace and make another line, kind of copying what I just saw. I'm going to outline the edge of my leaf on this side. I'm going to do it 2 times around. There, now you can kind of see my line work. And I'm kind of using my muscles as I push my crayon. It's kind of hard enough to make a nice, strong wax line on my paper. Got one more to trace right here. And later, when we paint our background, my crayon, I'm hoping, is going to resist the watercolor paint, and hopefully it will show up. I have a little space in between, so in those spaces, maybe I want to do something different, maybe some swirls, or you could make some hearts or some stars. And we'll have to see when I paint this later if that's going to show up. All right, let's get ready to do our painting. So we're going to get our watercolor set. Now I am left-handed, so I'm going to be placing my watercolor set on the left side. If you are right-handed, which is going to be most of you, there's not too many of us lefties out there, but if you're right-handed, you're going to put your paint on the right side. You're going to put your water also on the right side. So here's my paint. I've got my little bowl of water. And the first thing we're going to do is get our paintbrush. Oh, and don't forget your napkin. Use a napkin. I'm going to fold up my napkin and place that near my paint. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a little water to our paint set. So I'm just going to take my brush and dip it in my water bowl and very gently tap my brush on the yellow. The yellow is the lightest color, so I want to get a little bit of water floating on top of my yellow paint. Now I'm going to rinse out my brush just in case the bristles of my brush got some yellow on it. And now I'm going to put some water on my orange. I'm just kind of tap it on the edge right here and let that water fall into the orange. I'm not stirring, I'm just tapping it on top. I'm going to rinse out my brush and add a little water to my red. I know my camera does not show the red looking very red. It looks kind of almost black underneath my camera, but I promise that is red. I'm also going to add a little water to my green. I think I'm going to make some green leaves in there. And for my background, I'm definitely going to use some blue. I'm going to put some water on my blue. And I do like purple. My paint set came with purple. Your paint set might not have come with purple, but if you have pink, that would be a pretty color too. And then I do see a lot of brown in my leaves. So I do have brown in my set. So I'm going to add a little water to my brown. Now I let that water do its work. It's going to start softening up that paint so I can start to paint my leaves. Now I'm going to scoot my water over, scoot my paints over. I'm going to move my napkin so I can reach it. Set it kind of underneath my paint set here. And that way I can tap my brush on it when I need to. So let's get ready and we're going to paint our first leaf. You decide which leaf you want to paint first. And we're going to clean our brush and our water. And then I'm just going to wipe it on the side I'm going to dip my brush in my yellow water. Now, don't stick it down into the yellow paint. You're just going to kind of tickle it right on top of that water. And I want you to paint some yellow on your first leaf. And don't worry if you paint outside the lines. It's going to be beautiful. No matter what you do, it's going to be beautiful. So I'm not going to paint the stem yet. I'm just kind of painting the leaf. And I'm going to add another color on top of the yellow. So I'm going to rinse out my brush and wipe it up the side of the bowl. And now I'm going to dip my brush in the orange. And I'm just going to kind of tickle the water with my brush. And I'm going to add a little bit of orange by tapping my brush. Notice I'm not stirring all the colors together. I'm just kind of tapping my brush with that orange. And then the next color I'm going to put is red. I'm going to use a little bit of paint water. I'm going to add a little bit of red on this one. I'm going to let all those colors just kind of sit together on that leaf. I'm not mixing them all together. I'm just letting those colors kind of just do their own thing. I'm going to let that leaf sit there and dry. And then I'm going to move on now to painting my next leaf. So this time we're going to do something a little bit different. I want you just to use water on the next leaf. So put a little bit of water, not a lot, just a little bit of water on your leaf. And this time we're going to add yellow, just the paint water. And when I set it down on my picture, you're going to notice the yellow starts to spread on its own. It's just kind of starting to spread across that water. And I'm going to rinse out my brush and I'm going to get a little bit of green this time. I'm going to take the green and I'm going to tap the green just around the edge of the yellow, right around the side. The side of the leaf is called the margin. Now, once I'm done with the green, I'm going to clean my brush and rinse it off. And I'm going to use a dry brush. So I kind of wiped it on my napkin. Just kind of blotted it on my napkin. I'm just going to take those two colors and I'm just going to kind of tap with my brush like this. Notice as I'm tapping around in a circle like that, it's staying light in the middle. And the colors are kind of mixing together little by little. Now, when I'm done with that, I can now add a tiny bit of brown, just a little bit. So I'm going to tap it on my napkin so I don't have too much brown on my brush. And I'm going to tap just a little bit of brown next to the green. So the green won't be quite so bright because when the leaves fall from the trees, they're not super bright green. See, they're kind of a little bit more muted. I'm going to add a little bit of brown now to that green, just a tiny bit. And as I do that, now my green and my brown together is going to make a really pretty color. Now, do you see I have so much paint right here? What am I going to do with that big glob of paint? You might be thinking it's time to grab your napkin and tap it over that paint, but I don't want you to do that. Instead, I'm going to teach you a little artist trick. So I use my paintbrush as my sponge to wipe away that extra paint. So watch what I do. I take a napkin and I put the napkin in my hand. I take my paintbrush and I clean it in my water. I'm kind of rubbing it in my water. And then I tap it on my napkin, make sure my brush is clean. So now it's clean. I'm going to use my brush to soak up that extra color. So see what I'm doing? I'm grabbing that color in my brush. I'm going to wipe it on my napkin. Wipe it on my napkin. Wipe it on my napkin. Oop, there's another big puddle I can grab. Wipe it on my napkin. Now I picked up all that extra color that was so dark in my leaf. Now my leaf looks much better. I can take whatever leftover paint is on my brush, and now I can go up and paint my stem. So once you've finished your second leaf, we're going to go over and paint another leaf. So I've got this pretty leaf down here. Let's see what we can do with this one. We're going to add a little bit of water to it. My water's starting to get a little dirty from all the other colors that I've used, but that's okay. And first thing I'm going to do is decide what color I want that leaf. So as I was looking at all the different leaves I collected, this one has some pretty colors in it. I see some red, I see some orange, I see some yellow, but I do see a lot of like almost purple right on the ends of this. So maybe purple and red would be a pretty color combination to do for this one. I'm going to put a little bit of red on this leaf. It almost looks pink because I just used a tiny bit of it. And then I can go in with a tiny bit of purple. Now, if you didn't have purple, you could also add blue to your leaf. And when the blue and the red mix together, you're going to get a different shade of purple. So this is kind of pretty. As I mentioned, you could add a tiny bit of blue with your red. You can stir that together, and you will get your own shade of purple. Now I'm going to let that leaf dry, and I've got one more leaf up at the top to work with. Let's figure out what color I want to do that one. So for this leaf up here at the top, I'm going to start with water. Not a lot, just a little, just to kind of wet that area. And this leaf, I'm going to do kind of a variety of colors because look at this leaf. I see green in this leaf. I see brown. I see yellow. I see some orange up here. I'm going to really experiment this time with this one. Start with a little yellow. I'm brushing very gently. Now I'm going to add a little orange. Because my paper is wet, that orange is going to kind of start to do its own thing. Now, if I happen to put the orange in a dry spot where I didn't paint the paper with water, the orange will just sit there. You see how it's not doing anything? It's not moving. It's not blending in. But if I add just a little bit of water right next to it, that color will start to spread on its own. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and fill that orange out to the edge. And now I'm going to add a little brown. Now I said a little brown. I don't want to use too much. I'm just going to very lightly brush that brown, mixing in with the orange and the yellow. And I mentioned earlier that my leaf that I had also some green in it. I'm going to rinse out my brush, grab a tiny bit of green. And I'm just going to put a little bit in a couple of corners. I don't want it to be really bright, just a little bit. Now remember, what happens if you put too much color on your leaf like that? Remember how I taught you this? We're going to rinse out our brush, tap it on our napkin, make sure it's clean, make sure it's dry. I'm going to use my brush as a little sponge to grab that color and lighten up that spot. Then I can go in with a clean brush and a little water, and I can start to blend that color in so it's not so dark. Now, when you're finished with your leaves, you can just let this dry. So just set it aside and go do something else for a little while. And then when this is dry, you can come back and we will start to paint the background. I'm going to let my picture, I'm going to kind of scoop up those puddles before I let this dry. It'll take a little bit of less time. So I've got a lot of color that I could scoop up. And that's going to help my picture dry a little faster. See how I'm pulling that color with my brush? You can do the same thing. And then I'm going to let this picture dry and then we'll come back. Oh, I forgot to paint my stem. I'm going to grab this extra color and I'm just going to pull that color to the end. There. All right, I'm going to let my picture dry. You go ahead and let your picture dry. Pause the video, and when it's dry, come on back and we will work on our background. Okay, my leaves are pretty dry. And I think it's time for us to start a background. So to do our background, you can use a larger brush if you have one. If you don't, you can continue using the brush that came with your watercolor set. So if you have a larger brush, you can put a little bit of water in one section only. So I'm going to start right up here in the corner. I'm going to stay away from my leaf and my stem. I'm just going to brush a little bit of my paint water. Now you'll notice my paint water's got a little bit of color to it because I've been cleaning my brush from my leaves, but that's fine. You don't need to have brand new water for this. Just going to put a little bit just in one small section. And I'm going to go over and get my pointed brush now. And my pointed brush, I'm going to grab a little bit of the blue paint water. Now, you can make your background any color you would like. I'm going to be choosing blue because I think that would be a really pretty color combination because it's a cool color. And my leaf right over here is a warm color, warm like fire or the sun. Now, as I'm painting, you're going to see that my wax lines from my crayons are going to start to show. As I'm painting this water with a little bit of blue paint in it, all of a sudden my crayon is resisting the watercolor. So it's pushing through the watercolor. So I'm just going to add a little bit more water to my blue because remember, we're using just the water that floats on top. We don't want to paint with the thick paint at the bottom of this well. If we were to dig our brush in there, the color would be too thick and too dark, and our water would not be resisting against the wax crayon. Now, if you don't have crayons, you could also do this with oil pastel also. A little bit of water. I'm just going to brush a little bit of this watery blue over here. And I'm going to show you that when I paint here, do you notice it's not looking as soft as this? That's because my paper is dry. We want to start with water first. So watch what happens in this area here. If I start with water first, and then I use my blue paint water, you see, watch it. Can you see it spread? Doing the work all by itself. So I can add a little bit of water to fix this area. I'm going to put a little bit of water next to it. Once I place that water in there, all my blue starts to spread much nicer. So you're just going to continue painting one small section with water and then adding a little bit of your paint water. And if you want to change colors of your background, you can do that too. So let's say I'm working here and I want to change now over to another color. I can paint my water, and another color that looks really pretty with blue is purple, and another color is green. So you could go either purple or green. So let me put a little bit of water, paint water from my purple. Now you can see my purple is starting to mix in with my blue. And that's a really beautiful color combination, isn't it? You see how dark my color is here? It's too dark. So I'm going to use that dark paint and I'm going to stretch it over here by just adding water. So as I add my water, I'm not adding any paint, I'm just adding water to this area. Now I can grab that color and I can kind of help push it along to the other sections of my paper that have water, and that color will start to get lighter and lighter. And if you have too much color in one area, do you remember my trick we did earlier? I can take my napkin, I can take a clean brush. I'm going to rinse out my brush, check it, make sure it's pretty clean. Mine's still got paint in it. See that paint? And clean it again. And then I can use that dry brush as my little sponge to soak up that color. And I can take this color and I can paint it in another area of my picture. Wipe off my brush, scoop up that color. There's another big puddle right up here I can grab too, and I can use that to finish painting another space in my painting. Well, I hope you had fun learning how to watercolor and how to draw a leaf today and learning a little bit of the different parts of the leaf. I had fun teaching you. I really want to see your painting. So could you take a picture of your painting and email it to rtorres@lcusd.net. That's my email address for my school, and I would love to see your work. So go ahead and pause the video whenever you need to. Go ahead and finish your painting, and when it's all done, ask your parents if you could take a picture of your painting and send it to Mrs. Torres, because I would love to see your work when you're all finished. I had a great time teaching you today, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.